I don't know why I'm making this video, but I want to share my testimony to whoever needs to hear this. My name on this platform is Virtual Vagrant. I am, as of making this video, 33 years old and have spent a lot of my life playing video games. In 2025, sometime in August, my life would never be the same again. Growing up, I was raised by a single mother. My dad was absent for most of my life. He had a bad alcohol and gambling problem, so as a result, my mum didn't want him around me. According to her, he would often spend most of the household money on gambling machines and drink. My mother often had help raising me from my grandparents and other members of the family. I am an only child, no brothers or sisters. When I was a teen, I got into a lot of trouble in school and with the law enforcement. I started taking drugs and generally being a troublemaker. Although I never was convicted of any crimes, I wasn't the best person I could have been. I was really selfish, arrogant, angry, hurt, depressed, and just hated the world around me. But thankfully I did have video games to help keep me in the house and subsequently out of trouble. Fast forward about 20 years, I'm 32. I've worked most of my 20s in and out different jobs. Never really committing more than a year to any given job. You can imagine how many jobs I've cycled through at this point. It's 2025 and something was bothering me. Well, has been bothering me more than usual. I had always felt like something was missing. Like a void was in my heart that no amount of drugs, sex or video games was filling. One day I was scrolling through TikTok and I came across a video that would project my life down a path I never imagined. That video was of a pastor of a church called 2819. His name was Anthony Mitchell, and the title was something like, God is Calling. This made me curious enough to pull up one of his sermons, and I sat and watched all 1 hour and 30 minutes of it. And I remember just weeping my eyes out. I felt like God was calling to me and that the void I was feeling grew bigger and heavier. I realized that this was what I was missing. It was God. So for the next 3 months, every day I was studying the Bible, trying to find God and learn about Jesus. I obsessed over it for 3 whole months. And then the inevitable happened. Burnout. I obsessed so much I couldn't physically read anymore. And then the doubts crept in. I started to question God and my salvation. All the testimonies I was seeing and hearing talked about how God was speaking to them and showing them things, and I was starting to get frustrated, saying things like, why won't God speak to me? Why can't I hear him? Am I really saved? Maybe I'm too far gone. Or maybe God just hates me. Does any of this sound familiar to you? My doubts became so loud I fell into such a deep, depressive state. Why won't you speak to me? I wanted so badly to hear God's voice. A whisper, a word, anything, something. To be honest, I became delusional to the point I opened the Bible and I was reading the first line of Genesis over and over again, like a record player stuck on repeat. I shouted it, I screamed it. I was so desperate to hear from God. Eventually I came to my senses, and when I did, I was watching a video about someone describing a vision that God gave him. He described the vision as something akin to the final judgment. I won't go into detail, you can imagine what was being said. Almighty at one end, thousands of people being judged, etc., etc. I remember that night before bed, I prayed to God. I asked him to show me a vision, a dream, anything, just something to let me know that he was there and he was listening. Nothing. I woke up that morning feeling a little defeated, and quite frankly, I was over it at that point. I remember turning on my PC and booting up a little game called No Man's Sky. I'm sure you all know what game that is. If not, just Google it or search it on YouTube. It's a good game. Anyways, I was in an area of the game called the Nexus. It's a place where you can meet and interact with fellow gamers, and I met a person on there. He wasn't speaking or typing, but he gave me an expensive item and was beckoning me to follow him. Baited by his nice gesture, I decided to follow him. Maybe he wanted to show me his cool base or whatever, I thought, I don't know. So I followed him. He flew me to this fiery planet, not thinking anything of it. I landed at his base, and once I got out, I was instantly transported into a dome inside a volcano. I didn't have time to move or fly away or even think about what happened. It just happened so fast I didn't even realize until I started noticing my character taking damage. I tried to escape, but all the doors were locked, so I couldn't fly away. I tried to back out of the game, load back in, still trapped. I tried to glitch out, and when I did, because I was in the middle of a volcano, I couldn't escape the heat. I just kept dying over and over and over again. I was trapped in a perpetual cycle of burning, dying, respawning, burning, dying, respawning, burning, dying, and respawning over and over and over again. All the while, this guy was standing on a platform above me, just watching me. Not saying nothing, not trolling, not insulting me, just watching me die over and over again. I remember thinking to myself, why the hell would someone do this? For what, my gear? My ship? It made no sense. I realized my only escape was to delete my save data and start all over again. I remember thinking, man, this feels like I'm being trapped in hell. And then it hit me. I remembered my prayer. I remembered that I had asked God for this and I got it. My eyes widened and I was frozen in absolute shock. I couldn't believe what had happened. It was like I'd asked God and he responded in a way that only I would understand. In a video game of all things. But I know what you're thinking, viewer. Oh, this is just a coincidence. It doesn't prove anything. Well, what if I told you that that wasn't the only time God proved himself to me, but the first of 3 times God would make himself known to me? The second and third were both dreams I had, and trust me when I say I have never in my entire life ever had a dream like these 2 before. Dreams that not only were unique and unforgettable, but biblically accurate almost, you know? The first dream goes like this. I was in my place of work. I work at a retail store, so in the dream I found myself in my workplace. It's a big store, and I was in the middle of the store, randomly, as one does in these dreams, right? However, when I was looking around the store, I noticed that 2 things were off. Firstly, I didn't realize I was dreaming. This wasn't a lucid dream of any kind. The store was dark, and I remember looking outside the window in the far back of the store. It was dark, so it was obviously nighttime. And the second thing that was off was, for some reason, I felt anxious. Like I was being watched from the shadows. I remember feeling like I had to get out of the store, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to reach the door before whatever was lurking in the shadows would get me. I started to panic. I was trying to make my way towards the door. It was far from where I was standing, so I obviously needed to run. However, I felt like I couldn't run. I quickly realized that I wouldn't be able to outrun whatever was in the shadows. So in my desperation, I tried to call out for Jesus. I remember screaming his name with all my might, but my mouth just didn't make a sound. It was like my mouth was sealed shut. All I could do was like a muffled moan at best. Right? So I couldn't shout out his name. Yet I tried and I tried and I screamed, but no sound was coming out. I remember turning towards the shadow with my back towards the windows of the store, bracing myself for whatever was going to happen. And then suddenly I just started to fall backwards, almost in slow motion. I felt something pull from the scruff of my neck, and I started being pulled towards the windows. I remember thinking I was going to smash my head through the glass, but when my head reached the glass, it simply just passed through it, no shattering of glass, no pain, no feeling. And I was being held above the store facing the window. I remember looking in the window at the shadows, noticing that they wouldn't even come outside to chase me. Almost as if they were scared of whatever pulled me out. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel fear. I was so calm. Almost like a kitten when the mother cat carries them by the neck. I was being held up by someone as if to say, I have you. I've got you. And the shadows wouldn't dare give chase. After this happened, I was transported back into my room. I was placed in my bed, under the covers, and a hand reached down into my mouth and started to pull out a long black wire. Same thing as that one scene from that movie The Ring, right? The long black wire being pulled out of my mouth, and eventually it got stuck. I remember feeling the tug in my throat. I got scared as I didn't want to get hurt, but eventually the wire loosened and my throat cleared. The wire came out and I woke up, and my throat was sore. The third and final dream was a short but powerful one, and essentially what sealed the deal for me and made me understand who I was dealing with. I was on the walls of an old castle. I was running away from what looked like a massive demon. This thing was huge, muscular, angry, and it wanted me, and it was chasing me along the castle walls. I remember seeing a staircase leading up to what I imagined was some sort of barracks. I ran towards the stairs and this thing was breathing down my neck. I don't ever in my life remember feeling fear like I did when this thing was chasing me. I believe it was the same demon as the shadows from the dream before. All I knew, it wanted me badly. I ran up the stairs as quick as I could, and for whatever reason I suddenly stopped at the top of the staircase, facing the archway. As I stopped, my body turned around. I didn't turn it myself, it wasn't me moving my body was just turning. I wanted to keep running, but it stopped, turned me towards the demon, and as I was looking down to the demon was frozen in place at the bottom of the staircase, almost like it was in the middle of climbing the stairs, and as I turned around to face it, it froze. I remember my arms raised up and stretched outwards. I remember these words came out of my mouth with absolute authority. It is done. It wasn't my voice that said it. I didn't say it. But these are the words that left my mouth with such authority. So much so that it woke me up instantly. And I started to weep because I realized then and there in that moment, I am saved. Jesus is with me. He is real. He is doing his work inside my life. It finally sunk in. It was undeniable at that point. That was the proof that I needed. It may not be the proof for you, it may not be the proof that you deem sufficient, but for me it was more than enough. It was more than proof. And since that day, I looked back on my life. I looked back on certain dreams that I've had in my life, certain things that have happened in my life, and I see Jesus in those dreams. I see where he has been moving and working in my life, and there is nothing in this world that anyone can say or do that will convince me that he isn't real, that will convince me that what I experienced and what Jesus has shown me is a fallacy, is a fantasy, is unreal. No one can ever take that away from me. He has shown me something that is truly unique to me. And I'm only saying this in the hopes that whoever listens to this and is struggling with doubt, with uncertainty, who questions their salvation, do not question it. Do not doubt it for a second. If you do what I did. Ask him to show you. Ask him to prove to you, just like I did, and he will show you. How will you know if you never ask? I asked and I got. So I say to you, follower, I say to you, brother, I say to you, sister, ask and you will receive.